Hello, everybody. This is Gregory with 5-Minute Catholic Apologetics, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today, we're going to talk about the problems of fellowship in the Catholic Church and what can be done about it. Now, before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, secutor in principio et nunc et semper et in saeculae saeculorum. Amen. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. All right, so a lot of Catholics, I think maybe more in the traditional Catholic bent, who, let's be honest, are a little more intolerant, would say, who cares? We don't need fellowship. We have the real presence. We have the sacraments. We're the fullness of the faith. And I get that. But, you have to understand on one level, people who are interested in coming to the faith, I think on intellectual levels, they're drawn to the church. But you have to understand where they're coming from. And sometimes it's not the most intellectual reasons why someone's going to come and stay in the church. Now, some would say, oh, well, just throw them out. But again, we have to have some charity here. Most Protestants throughout their life go to services that, especially the evangelical non-denominational ilk, don't really have a lot of solemnity. And the crux of the service is fellowship and praise. Now, the pastor might and does sermons, but mostly it's the praise and the fellowship. And we glibly say they'll have a coffee shop, and I was shocked when I talked to Protestant converts how it's totally fine to drink coffee and eat during service. It's just like, what? And I think I talked about in the episode, why do Protestants church jump? The typical evangelicals at least gone to 2, 3, 4 churches in their own lifetime. And I have evangelical churches near where I used to live at least. I have a carousel in the church, like in the atrium, I should say. Because they know, you get the kids, you get the parents. And I think from a Catholic point of view, especially a traditional Catholic point of view, a lot of this just seems like just sacrilege. Either way, there are Protestants who want to come to Holy Mother Church, and they come and they go to Mass. And even before they've decided to convert, maybe they're just trying out, foot in the water. No one says hi to them. There's no fellowship. People go into Mass. Maybe, if it's a Novus Ordo, you're shaking hands. Now anymore, most of them are just nodding. And then you get out. And I think for cradle Catholics, for us, it's pretty normal. Because we understand on one level that the fellowship part's not important. Because we have the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And we can get the fellowship later if we need it to get the fellowship. But from a Protestant perspective, it's a hard transition to go from your whole paradigm, your whole life is fellowship and worship. And having this circle of friends or network of people that you're close with. And go from that to crickets in the Mass. In addition to just the strangeness, if you're going from evangelical to a Mass, especially if you're going to a TLM, a Latin Mass, or ordinariate, it's just like, and then you throw in, what? No fellowship? No one saying hi? It's a problem in the church, and we need to be honest about this. Because the purpose of the church is to evangelize and to bring people in. Yes, it's to keep Catholics in there, but it's to bring people in. Now, I'm not saying that we should necessarily start having people drink coffee and eat donuts in Mass. Of course, I'm not saying that. And a lot of parishes do try some things. You see the hospitality ministers, for example, who will welcome people. Hello, 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 when they walk in. That's great. A lot of evangelical churches, they have hospitality ministers that are just essentially accosting them. Oh, you're new? You're new? And they give them the best seats. They get special parking. Again, the cynic would say, well, this is all to make them feel special because, it's just basic psychology. If you make them feel special and feel at home, they're going to stay there and therefore you can tithe and, it's a business. But they go from that to the Catholic, where at the most some parishes will hello, hello. And then, some of the Novus Ordo will do if you're new to this parish, stand up. Clearly, they don't really know people. I understand why they're doing it, because they're thinking, okay, after Mass, some of the Catholics will maybe go say hi to them, and they need to be identified. But there are a lot of introverts And if it's somebody who's new to the church, they're probably not going to want to stand up because they don't even know what's going to happen. Please stand up. What's going to happen? Am I doing an altar call? Please stand up. And so they're not going to want to stand up. So it's a problem. So I would tell converts, and please post in the comments if you can experience this or you were a Protestant who converted. The mindset needs to change when you're a Protestant convert coming into Catholicism, because we do have fellowship, but we don't do it in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Why? Because it's the holy sacrifice of the Mass. So it has to go both ways. So I think pastors do need to do a better job, and I would say this at TLM and Ordinariate too. They need to make a concerted effort to welcome the new people. And it's difficult, right? You can have the hospitality ministers, but it's not like this is the Gestapo in 1982. It's not like we're going to ask for your papers when you walk into the church. So I don't know how how you can identify new people. I would say, in like the church I go to at the end of Mass, when they're doing announcements, they say, welcome to the church. If you're new to the church, let us know in the back and so forth. We'd love for you to join the parish. And again, you could cynically say, well, it's because they want to increase the register rolls. But I mean, that is their effort. But what I would tell Protestants who are wanting to come to the Catholic Church because they understand it's the fullness of the faith, which it is, of course, you're going to have to make an effort. It's like what I tell people, like, I really want a girlfriend. They just expect the girlfriend to knock on the door at their house, but no effort. You're going to have to make the effort. And the effort isn't really hard. All you have to do is pick up the bulletin, the little newsletter, or call the parish office. And in both cases, there's going to be a list of fellowship. Most parishes have a lot, depending on what it is. Like the men, they'll have the Knights of Columbus. There might be 2 Bible study groups, 3, depending on the size of the parish. There might be a Legion of Mary. There might be a young moms group. There might be the altar guild. They're the ones that keep the altar pretty and get flowers. I mean, there's hosts of what we call apostolates in a typical parish, whether it be Novus Ordo or, TLMs are typically smaller, so you might not see as many, but there are things out there. So you do have to reach out and go to these things. So it is very day and night, very binary. If you're going from like Lutheran or Anglican to Catholic, it's not as much of a seismic change. But if your whole life has been non-denominational, where there's like no statues, no stained glass, everything's white, and the music's up-tempo, a lot of this, and then the sermons. You go from that to a TLM or even a regular Novus Ordo Mass. And, let's fair. Bunini even admitted he wanted to make the Mass more Protestant to welcome the Protestants. But even the typical Novus Ordo church is going to have a crucifix, a couple of statues, and some things that are, Catholic. But to go from that Protestant thing to the Catholic thing, where everyone is just, like they'll think like they're just so distant and rude, there's no fellowship. I would tell you Protestants, you have to kind of change what your expectation is and really have an understanding of what the Mass is about. Because we have the Mass and the sacraments, and that's what it's really about. We don't have a horizontal view of worship, which is very common in Protestant circles. Our orientation is vertical. It's vertical. And so the onus is on the Protestant convert to kind of understand this, do research on this, and reorient yourself and become Catholic in that regard. But also understand that you do need fellowship, because there are going to be Protestants who come to the Catholic Church and they leave either through RCIA or there's no one talking. I know this seems, especially if you're a trad Catholic, to be like, why are you going to leave for that? But you have to understand their perspective. And so if you're contemplating joining the church, again, get the bulletin. You're going to have to make an effort, go to these meetings, and then you'll have the trueness, fullness of the faith, plus the fellowship outside of Mass. Extra outside of Mass. Guys, post in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.